I'll start with a quick introduction of Gonzalo. So today's guest is Gonzalo at Punta Consultants. This is an immigration firm that helps foreigners secure residency and citizenship in Uruguay. The plan for today is that Gonzalo is going to has a presentation prepared, so he'll go and give the key highlights of what are the legal pathways of securing residency and then citizenship in Uruguay, and then we will have a Q&A at the end. For the people who joined us live, if you have any question throughout, note it down in the public chat or take a note of it, and you can ask your question at the end of the presentation. All right, Gonzalo, welcome. I see the presentation loaded, so.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here with Mavericks today. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we can go through the presentation if you want, cover your presentation.
Let's start it. Thank you. Well, we'll start with a country overview for those who don't know Uruguay, or just they don't have a full knowledge of the country. I'll talk about it. And so the country, talking about, if you can see the screen now, well, it says country overview. And we'll Uruguay, talking about the country, is a politically stable country with strong democratic traditions and institutions. And I was discussing earlier with Anissa about Uruguay. One of the most beautiful things about Uruguay is the respect for the institution of a republic and a country. Early 2000, Uruguay was, for 3 terms, the country was run by a left-wing government. So there's no re-election in Uruguay, but the Socialist Party, the left-wing party, ran the elections 3 times consecutively. And then in 2020, the right wing took over and they ran the country for 5 years. We have a 5-year term for presidents. And they went through the pandemic. And now, 2025, March, we have again a left-wing government. So why I mentioned this, I would really like to outline the fact of the respect for the institution of the country, for the respect for democracy we have in Uruguay, which is really high compared to neighbor nations and many South American countries, in which this respect for the institution as a country is sometimes a little bit vulnerable, fragile. And the left-wing government in 2025, they won the elections only by 3-4%, and there was no contest. It was welcomed by the opposition. They already running the country again, and everything is normal. Everything is good. There are no fights. I mean, obviously, it's good to have opposition, but there's no. I don't want to talk about name the other countries, but if you look around some nations around the world, when right or left wing and they tear down whatever the previous government did, that doesn't happen in Uruguay. They respect and honor the deals they have as a country, as an institution. So no matter who wins, you can, as a foreigner, as an investor, you can trust the country. We have friendly business policies, and investment is really encouraged by government. I was discussing with a client last week, Uruguay. He told me that we are blessed. We in Uruguay are blessed just because we don't have any natural resources. We don't have gas, we don't have oil. And to some people that would say, well, Uruguay is a poor country. But when you think globally about the countries that are privileged by having these natural resources, they are going through big struggles. And we don't have that. So our main resource in Uruguay is our land, the people, and the services we can provide. So that's and obviously the policies for to welcome investors and low or zero taxes. I'm in Punta del Este right now, and just a few blocks away from me by the harbor. There are they're about to finish building a 27-floor building. It's a free trade zone, so it's a building. Basically, it's going to provide services, and many international corporations are going to set their offices here, provide services, and pay no taxes. So we, as a small little country, little to say little, we have to look into further horizons and take advantage of such benefits and look for opportunities and to attract investors and people to come to live in Uruguay. There's something it's not here on the slideshow, but 2023 there was how you call it when they do the statistics and census. They did the census, and Uruguay only showed a little growth. We were always a country, 3.3 million people. Now we're only 3.5, but I think that's mainly immigrants. So Uruguay is encouraging people to come and live in Uruguay, to set roots and to start a new life. That's a policy from government, the people, and the country as an institution. We have a stable economy with limited access to credit, and this is important to also to remark. The limitation to credit, we are a cash-based economy, so it's not so easy to access credits or loans or mortgage. So we were brought up, we were taught to save, and then we have enough savings, you can go buy a house, buy a car. So that somehow creates or leads to having little debt. People are not in deep debt, or they lose their job and then they lose their home and their car. That's not going to happen because their house, even if it's half built, it's paid in full. The same with a car. Maybe they have an older car, they don't have the latest model of the new brand, but you can sense that, and then when you see it in the streets. Our unemployment rate is it's 8%, and there's guaranteed access to healthcare. In Uruguay, when you get a job or when you set up a business, you're entitled to have private healthcare. You can get to choose your private hospital, and I would say the health system, the healthcare is pretty good in our country. And so if you have no job or if you don't have a business, you can join for free the public health system, which is not the best in the world, but it's good enough. We are located in a very strategic, fantastic area of South America. And we have 660 kilometers of coast to the Atlantic Ocean, starting from the River Plate or Rio Uruguay to the border with Brazil, to which sheer Atlantic Ocean. And it gives Uruguay a lot of opportunities we have a beautiful natural port in the capital city in Montevideo, and big sea freight companies are operating from there, and the connections we are connected to are obviously a big cities such as Buenos Aires, and then the connection we have to major airports such as Sao Paulo, Brazil. Today you can find flights to Europe, directly to Spain and Paris, and we're not inaccessible. Our population density is 50 people per square mile. Most of the people in our country are located in Montevideo, the capital city, 1.5 million people. Then you have the state of Canelones, and then the third largest population is here in the state of Maldonado, where Punta del Este is. And our constitutional rights are enforced to protect private property. Private property is really honored, respected, and praised. And in 2020, there were new laws passed that even make these private property rights to citizens, make it even stronger than before. For example, in Uruguay, not even with a court warrant, not even the police can access your home at night. And there's no warrant for search when the sun sets. So when it's dark, nobody can get into your property, not even if the judge says so, because that's unconstitutional. That's in other countries it's normal. They can raid a house at night, and here in Uruguay you can't. Even if the cops know you're into illegal activity, they can't. And this was voted a few times. We went and voted. We expressed our decision, and most people decided that they should keep it this way. More than 200 years old laws. Preston, we go to the next. Well, now we'll talk about permanent residence in Uruguay. I was discussing earlier with Enisa how beautifully the pandemic was handled in Uruguay. We are a free country. There's a lot of respect. We have our problems, obviously, but our problems are minimum compared to other countries. And starting, I would say, a decade ago, but actually in the pandemic, people discovered Uruguay. And the way the pandemic was handled here was even made Uruguay more popular. There was no lockdown. We were free. They had some regulations and restrictions, but most people respected it, and we were free to go on with our lives. And that's when I would say 5-6 years ago, Uruguay became really trendy in terms of relocation, starting a new life, residency, real estate, and there was a boom. So I'm going to talk about permanent residency, and the two most important aspects of getting permanent residency are, number one, residing in Uruguay, and two, doing some kind of legal activity in the country. Fortunately, right now, the immigration authorities became more flexible about the requirement of the length of a stay in order to become permanent, get your residency approved. So they have become more flexible, more executive, and they have shortened the waiting periods and this requirement number one of residing in the country. If we can go to the next page on the slide, Preston. So I'm going to talk about the requirements to get and to become a permanent resident in Uruguay. So number one is you need a police report from the country that you were born and the country where you have resided in the past 5 years. So I have been asked, what if I have any annotation or if I have a record? I've had clients who, when they were a teenager, they had some pot or some misdemeanor and some. That's not a deterrent to become a permanent resident in Uruguay, as long as you can prove that the case has been closed and there's nothing pending. So, but I would go and talk privately with each individual about this case, but it is not a problem if there's no serious crime committed. Then secondly, proof of income. You need to prove that you have ways or means to sustain yourself in the country, that you're not going to become dependent on government on a subsidy or on money from government. I've had clients who are really wealthy, but they cannot really demonstrate how they make their money, or they cannot really prove it. So we find ways to facilitate this for the proof of income. If needed, we can help clients with our CPA. We can help them set up a business. We cannot help them find a job, but we can find other legal ways to comply with this proof of income regulation. Then medical evaluation is a simple checkup done here in Uruguay: blood, urine test, eye test, and we do it in a private clinic. It only takes a short visit to the doctor, and this part is checked. Then the applicant will also need birth and marriage certificates from their country of origin, and these certificates need to be apostille in their home country. When the applicant is a minor under the age of 18, this birth certificate needs to be fresh. So it needs to have a fresh issuance date. They're very strict and meticulous about the kids submitting residency. So both parents need to be acknowledged such thing, or authorized, they approve it, and that's why they're careful about minors. Then you need passport size photos. You can 3x4 centimeters passport size photo, white background, very simple. I was going to mention that we also have express filing system when it comes to submitting permanent residency. that if you don't have all the paperwork required, you can get your application started with just your passport and the photo, and then we can submit the rest of the documents whenever you get them. So sometimes it's a bit difficult to gather all the paperwork that's required for permanent residency, but you can still get started, and you have up to 12 months to submit the remainder documents. So it's not an impediment to get your Uruguayan ID and get started if you don't have all the documents. So this it's important to outline that. The sooner you complete your application, the better you do, because you will get it granted faster. So if there's anything pending, it will create a delay. But it's important to say that you, from the start, from the get-go, you get a 2-year valid ID. This ID will say that you're a resident in process, and it will be valid for 2 years. But then when the residency is approved, because you complied with everything and submitted all the required paperwork, immigration will just approve your residency, and you change your ID, and in the back it will say that you're permanent and the process is complete. So what are the benefits of getting Uruguay residency? First of all, you have the right to stay here unlimited. You can stay in the country and you need no more visa, no 90-day automatic stay, or you just can stay and live here all your life. And you are obviously allowed to travel and exit the country. The more time you stay and faster you can complete your application, the better you do in getting it approved. And guaranteed entry to the country, even if the borders are closed. This happened in the pandemic. The borders were closed, but other people with a Uruguayan ID were allowed to enter the country, and their family as well. When you are a resident and you have an ID, you have guaranteed access to private health care. You don't need to get a job. You don't need to set up a business. You can go to the private hospital. They will run all the checks they want, and then they will approve you or not. But it's even some hospital, even if you're not a resident, they still take you. So it's important when you move to a new country that you have guaranteed access to health care. You can have a bank account, access to private property. So there's no really difference in between me being born here and you coming from overseas and applying for residency. You will have the same rights I do have. And obviously, what's the biggest goal or the biggest benefit behind getting residency in Uruguay is this is the first step towards citizenship and Uruguay passport. That's what we're going to talk about. So you cannot be a citizen of Uruguay if you're not first a resident. Who can apply for citizenship? Any adult permanent resident who has resided in the country. If you're married, you have to prove you have resided in Uruguay for 3 years. And if you're single, you have to prove you have resided in the country for 5 years. What's residing in the country? So for the court that handles the citizenship application, residing in Uruguay means being in the country at least 8 or 9 months out of 12 in the past 3 years if you're married, 5 if you're single. So you're allowed to travel, go on vacation, visit your family for the holidays. That will not have impact on your citizenship application. If you're 6 months here and 6 months overseas, then it's questionable. There's something I would like to mention, just a brief comment. Some people get mixed up when they read on the internet. Oh, I read that you have to be in Uruguay 6 months and you become a resident. Yeah, that's for tax residency, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're not talking about tax residency. When you reside in Uruguay for 6 months out of 12, from January 1st to December 31st, you automatically can become a tax resident. But that doesn't give you an ID. That doesn't give you the right into the country. That's only for tax purposes. That's something completely different. That's why I wanted to mention this, because there's usually confusion. Oh, I read on the internet that if I invest, I get residency. That's tax residency again. The investment residency, the 6 months, that's for tax. Right? If you want to give up your citizenship and you want to shut down your tax residency in your home country and start residency in Uruguay, yes, that's true. Investment, 6 months, but that's not permanent residency. That does not give you an ID or a passport. So going back to the citizenship, application, you need to show evidence of social insertion. You need to show evidence of what you have been doing in the past 3 years. So it can be your job, your business activity. If you're a member of an official institution such as a church, a club, you will be asked to show banking activity, not how much money you have, but just that you show proof that you have been really living and being part of our community. That's mainly what you need for citizenship. That's the most relevant evidence they look at, where your whereabouts and what you have been doing. Citizenship can only be applied in person, individually, not as a family, as you can do for residency. And after you submit the application, it usually takes about 12 months for the court to get the process granted. That's when you can change your ID from resident to citizen, and you can apply for the passport and you get it almost immediately. And there's something I would really like to comment about, is that Uruguay just 2 months ago, this is good news, they made a modification in the laws that Uruguay, unfortunately, was not a, you could have Uruguay passport, but you were a citizen of Uruguay, but they didn't give you nationality. But now Uruguay does. When you get the Uruguay passport, you become a citizen, and your nationality is Uruguayan. And the place of birth in our new passports is hidden. So it will say your name, your nationality, Uruguay, and the place of birth will be kept hidden. So for some nationalities, let's say you are Chinese, or you're Cuban, you're required a visa to 99% of the countries on earth. So if it shows that you're Cuban, then unfortunately you will be required, even if you had Uruguay passport, you would be required to have a tourist visa, which was no good. But now they changed this. It's very good news. And the Uruguay passport, I mean, you can access 185 countries visa-free with our passport. So it's a valuable passport, I would say. And the fact that your place of birth is not mentioned and just it says nationality Uruguay, I think is great news. So maybe, President, we can go to the 6th page. Well, I mentioned briefly about this. You need to be a resident to become a citizen. You need to have resided in the country, show evidence of social insertion, such as BPS is the Social Security Administration of Uruguay. Evidence that you have been a member of a community established in the country, banking activity, evidence of real estate ownership is not a requirement, but it helps. Then you need to have the Uruguayan version of the birth certificate and the marriage certificate, if applicable. You go through a simple interview in Spanish. For citizenship, you do need to speak some Spanish, not for residency. But for citizenship, you need to be able to handle a basic conversation. They ask you about 20 questions. They don't ask you about the Constitution. You don't have to memorize or learn about the history of the country. It's just basically questions about yourself. But if you have been here for 3 or 5 years, you will for sure learn Spanish. You need to have 2 Uruguayan-born witnesses who need to be 25-year-old plus, and they would need to say they've known you, you have a relationship with them, just friendship. And you will need a statement from immigration that shows your whereabouts, how long you have been in the country in the past 3 or 5 years. And if you have long absence, you will have to say why you were away. Obviously, life is changeable, and people, go through different circumstances in life, and things happen. And some people pass away, and they have to be away organizing funerals or things, or sometimes happy events, and you need to be away. As long as you can prove or explain to the court when you're submitting citizenship that why you have been away, we can find ways to satisfy their needs. And now I want to talk about a little bit ourselves, and why should you hire a company like us when you truly you can do it yourself. Yes, you can try getting residency and citizenship yourself. Yes, or you can hire other companies or other law firms that can assist you. But what we have been specialized is in providing cater services. Our job is to find solutions for our clients. That's basically our job, and we, me or any other members of my team, go hand to hand with our clients to all the government or non-government offices. We go with you for the interview. We go get the ID with you. We go to the doctor to get the medical part done. We go to the court. We go and then people give us a power of attorney, and we can go submit documents on their behalf. So our services are really catered, and we always try to walk the second mile for our clients. And there are some people who are members of the Mavericks community, such as Matt Smith, who are really happy with our services, and they relocated to Uruguay. They started a new life, and they're truly satisfied with the outcome of everything they have, what they hire us for, and they're happy. And I had his permission to mention his name, and that's the biggest difference between us and other law firms, or trying it yourself. That we have been doing this for 17 years. We have experience, and obviously we have overcome difficulties because everybody's application is different. You all come from different places with a different lifestyle, different. So we have learned to, go through this and always find a solution for our clients, and our clients are very happy with us. And I think I will give you guys time to ask any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gonzalo. That was very interesting. Also, adding some local flavor into the culture, because yourself, you are Uruguayan, born and living there. I'm curious. One of the most important things when somebody looks for a plan B is how easy it is by the local people as one of theirs. And I wanted to ask if you have any opinion or experience in this regard for a foreigner. I mean, a parenthesis here, I want to say that from experience and from what I hear from other people, Uruguayan are extremely warm and welcoming people, which is part of the tourism probably business, and they have to be a good host in order to be appreciated for their services. My question is, for somebody that wants to live there and become a citizen, are they how easy it is to be embraced by the local Uruguayan, to be considered as one of them, in your opinion?
Good question. I will tell you what my clients, what they say to me. They feel really welcome. They feel that in general Uruguayans are very friendly and helpful. Some people ask me, "Oh, do Uruguayans speak English?" Some do, some not. But even the ones who don't, they welcome foreigners, and they don't ignore you because you don't speak the language. They try to help you out and be resourceful. That's what my clients tell me. Me as a native, I see that in general people are friendly, and they always try to welcome foreigners. Obviously, in the tourism industry, that's their job. But when you relocate and you start living in the country permanently, that's my feeling. I don't see discrimination. There's no discrimination in Uruguay. There's no corruption. I didn't talk about it, but in Uruguay there's no corruption. There's little or none. You don't find a solution by pay under the table. So we are very bureaucratic. There's a lot of bureaucracy, yes, but you have to deal with it. How easy is to integrate? I'll be honest with you. Expats who don't learn the language, or they isolate instead of integrating, yes, it's very hard to become part of the community or the society if you don't try to at least learn a little bit the language and be part of I have clients who haven't learned to speak Spanish, and it's been tough for them. For some, they even with their poor Spanish, they feel welcome. They feel good. They feel part of their neighborhood, their community, and it's all. Sometimes I think it's just up to you how much you want to. If you want to be part of Uruguay, or if you want to segregate and bring your habits into the country and impose it on your new place.
Right.
I think there's a question. Somebody asked some questions, Denisa.
Yes. So Elaine asks, once you file a request for citizenship, how long the process will take? I believe you mentioned in your last slide that it's 24 months.
It usually takes no citizenship after you start it. Usually it takes 10 to 12 months, and it's not a court process, not judicial. It's an administrative process.
Okay, so that answers the second
here
question.
In Uruguay, the citizenship is handled by the electoral court. When I say court, it's the electoral court.
All right. So in terms of a timeline, if I understand correctly, it takes 2 years to apply, to 2 years until you become a permanent resident, right?
Good question, Denisa. No, I have clients who got the residency granted in 3-4 months. Because from the start, yes, I mean, that's why I mentioned in the presentation that the previous and this administration, they become really executive. It used to take 24 months, yes. That's what the slideshow was saying. But if you have all the paperwork they expect from you, proof of income, police report, everything they want from you, and you submit it from the beginning, you can get it approved in fast. I cannot give you an ETA because it is a bureaucratic process. But I've had recent cases from my clients whose application was granted in 3 to 5 months. It was really fast. But they still have to wait 3 years to become a citizen.
Of course. And do you have to be present on the country territory until you get the approval of your permanent residency, or the same 9 out of 12 months applies in this case as well?
The answer is no. You don't have to be full-time in the country to become a resident, and neither for citizenship. You're allowed to travel, to leave the country. But of course, the more time you spend in the beginning, because in the beginning you're being watched. You want to see your paperwork, that you're not a criminal, that you have an income, and they're going to be watching your whereabouts, how long you stay in the country. So if you stay in the country for a few months and all your paperwork is in good order, in good condition, then they will approve it. They cannot say anything, but you will get it granted. Some people don't want to go for passport or citizenship. Some people just want to have a plan B, have an ID, and they want to have guaranteed access into the country, even if there's another global crisis that we had in 2020 or 2019, the pandemic, and they want to have this freedom. I have European clients who have their plan B already in place. They have a home, they have the residency, and they don't live here. They got the residency and the residency card. When you're permanent, they give you the ID for 3 years. And the only way you can lose your permanent residency is if you stay out of the country for 3 years. So as long as you visit Uruguay every 35 months, you can keep and maintain your residency, I would say, forever. Obviously, if you don't live here, you would never qualify for citizenship.
That's very interesting. So that was the next question I wanted to ask. Basically, I understand that if irrespective of citizenship, I can get an ID card. Is it in saying that I'm a resident and in and out whenever I want? I wanted to ask, in order, or let's first talk about the tax implications, right? If I reside on Uruguay's territory for more than 6 months, I understand that I automatically become a tax resident in Uruguay. In Uruguay, not, as far as I know, but please correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't have a territorial tax system. So that means that I am potentially taxed on all my global income. Is this correct?
That's a very good question. I thank you for bringing it on the table. Technically, when you reside more than 6 months in Uruguay, you become a tax resident. But Uruguay has only territorial tax. So if you make income in Uruguay, you will pay taxes in Uruguay. Uruguay, you're not taxed for global income. And even if you wanted to bring your wealth, you have an 11-year exemption, tax exemption. So Uruguay will not tax you for your foreign or global income for 11 years. So
oh, wow, that's very important.
Yes, of 11 years. Even if you wanted to bring your wealth into the country, it's not taxable. That's one of the friendly policies I mentioned before. We didn't discuss about tax resident, but I will briefly mention you can become, number one, you can become a tax resident if you live 6 months in the country. Number two, if you invest $500,000 into real estate and you reside 60 days in the country, then you become a tax resident. Or if you invest about $2 million and you don't reside 0 day, no, you don't reside in Uruguay. If you invest $2 million into real estate, you become a tax resident. What is it good? What is the tax residency good for? That's up to you, depending on your needs. If you want to give up your citizenship in your home country and shut down your tax residency wherever you live, then maybe Uruguay tax residency is good for you, but only for those purposes. Remember, when you become a tax resident, you don't get an ID, you don't get a passport, just for tax purposes. So when does the 11 years start counting? When you start residing more than 6 months in the country.
Wow, very interesting.
So let's say you get your residency and you lived 5 months in Uruguay, okay? But you never lived in Uruguay more than 6 months, then you were never a tax resident of Uruguay. So the 11-year window, the exemption hasn't started, the clock hasn't started for you yet.
Right. Elaine also asks, do you have to become a temporary resident for 2 years in order to obtain permanent residency? I believe you said you can obtain the permanent residency much faster than 2 years, right?
That is right. Yes. I mean, they give you a 2-year ID. Why? Why do they give you a 2-year ID? Because some people, they come from one country, but they were born in another country. I have cases that people were born in countries that don't exist today. And so imagine getting the birth certificate from those countries. It's very challenging getting there. I have a client who was born in what's today Ukraine. And her marriage certificate, her birth certificate doesn't exist. So she would never get it. She's been trying to find, we have been helping her to get options, how to come up with those documents that she needs, and that takes time. So that's why they give you a 2-year ID that says that you are in process, because everybody's situation is different. Let's say you come from one country and you just bring one police report and it's easy for you to gather all the paperwork, and you from the start you submit it, then obviously your application will very likely be granted in a faster way than this lady I was talking about.
Right.
So
I mean, is somebody even employ as a strategy to extend their temporary residency time if they are unsure about the tax residency or permanent residency with Uruguay? I assume that whilst you are a temporary resident, you can still benefit from the rule that you can always enter the country without a limitation on your stay, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, right. There's something else we didn't discuss. That we don't do that, but we can recommend some companies to do it. When you apply for permanent residence in Uruguay, you had the benefit of bringing your households. You can do a duty-free importation, so you can bring 1 or 2 containers with all your belongings, and you don't pay taxes. No import taxes. You have to pay for the transportation and the moving cost, but Uruguay will not tax you for all your belongings.
Interesting. And what's the import tax otherwise?
It's high. That's one of the downsides of Uruguay. We have high import taxes, depending on what it is, but the import taxes can be from about depending on what it is, but it can go from 40 to 60%.
Wow. So that is why the scarcity, hence the scarcity of variety, let's say, in the supermarkets. I understand it's not a lot of imported goods or
no, actually
outside
the opposite.
Uruguay.
You can find everything here. We have the best cars, the best Rolls Royce, Porsche, whatever you can imagine. You have all the products in the supermarket. There's things, it's just the cost of living in Uruguay is higher than other countries. But it's, I mean, I have clients from Argentina, from Brazil. Cost of living in those countries is also high. Cost of living has become high almost globally. And Uruguay is not an exemption from that fact. So, no, we have everything is available here. And you can import whatever you want. You just have to pay the taxes.
Very interesting. So if I understand correctly, there is no residency, there is no citizenship by investment program that Uruguay has currently. Do you think that there is one that the government is planning to introduce, or what are your thoughts on that?
I haven't heard anything. I don't think that they're talking or planning any of that. There was an old traveler passport they had for people who are retired over the age of 60, who have a pension, and they have to buy the treasuries or use their home as a bond, as a security, and then you get a traveler passport. But I don't recommend anyone going with this route. You have to first apply for residency, and then the passport itself says the holder of this passport is not a Uruguayan citizen. So that gives little value to these traveler passports. So that's why I always encourage people to apply for residency and later become a citizen, because they have earned it.
Yeah, and also your comment.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
I wanted to say that you're mentioning that of the change that happened 2 months ago, where your original place of birth and citizenship basically is no longer mentioned in the passport. I think that is a huge, huge change. It makes all the difference between having an Uruguayan passport before 2 months ago and right now. For the people who already have a passport from before, can they change it now? And
that's what they're doing now. That's what they're doing. Every expat who is a citizen, they're changing their passport into the new one. They can easily change it in just a week. So they go change it. They say, I want to update my passport, and they're doing that, especially if they really don't want their home country or place of birth to be mentioned.
Very interesting. Regarding the Uruguayan ID up to the time that you're eligible for citizenship and passport, is it true that you can use that ID to travel in South America, in the other Southern American countries, or it's only valid for Uruguay territory?
Very good question. The entry upon a country depends on your nationality. That's why they modify this passport thing. So let's say you are Argentinian or you're from Chile and you have Uruguayan ID, you can travel in South America freely with your Uruguayan ID. But for example, let's say you're American and you are a permanent resident of Uruguay and you want to go to Brazil. I think Lula, they brought it back. You need a visa to go to Brazil if you're American, even if you're a permanent resident, because the fact of being a Uruguayan resident does not override the fact that you're American, for example. So the entry upon a country depends on the nationality. I had a client. I had clients from Pakistan. I don't have many clients from Pakistan, but I have a family from Pakistan, and they left their country for religious purposes because of what they believed, and they moved to Uruguay. They're free here, and they told me, there's no good in me in doing citizenship if I'm going to be treated as a Pakistani wherever I go. So when this law was passed 2 months ago, they were flabbergasted. They were so happy. You can't imagine. Say, I'm going for the passport now. I really want to get it now because I will be treated as a Uruguayan wherever I go. They wanted to go to Spain. They wanted to go to, and they can't, visa free. So that, I think, it gives the Uruguay passport a lot more value than before.
Right. Very interesting. All right. Well, this was great. It was very insightful conversation with you, Gonzalo. Thank you very much for your time. I see that there are no other questions in the chat box, in the public chat. Does anyone want to say anything, ask anything? Please let us know. Otherwise, we will wrap this up.
It's been my pleasure to be with you guys today. So look forward to hearing from you. Feel free to reach out to us and ask any questions privately, confidentially, and we'll be happy to answer your queries. Thanks for your time, Melissa. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Thank you very much, Gonzalo. It was great speaking to you. For the Maverick members who are interested in reaching out to Gonzalo, we have posted all of the details, including the pricing and the discount that he was kindly willing to offer us on the Maverick social platform in the section directory. We will link this in the webinar replay of this with Gonzalo. Once again, thanks a lot, Gonzalo.
You're welcome, guys. Thank you. Bye.
All the